All right, welcome in here. College basketball time here with some great games slated for this Friday. We're going to break down some of the big ones here, including Iowa taking on Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State, and of course, Creighton and Marquette. Interesting one on FS1, 9 o'clock Eastern time tip. Maybe, just maybe, we'll take a look ahead to tomorrow's games, especially the one happening with the University of Florida traveling to Kentucky to take on the Wildcats. So welcome in. We appreciate you guys hanging with us, Brian. We definitely don't want Brian Power in here, so we're definitely going to change that to Brian Leonard as soon as we can. There we go. Thank you. We don't want anybody getting that confused there. Brian Leonard's in the house. Adam Trigger is here, and we are ready to roll. And let's start with that first game up there. That one being, of course, Wisconsin taking on Iowa. Nothing like a little Big Ten battle to get the blood flowing here. Brian Leonard, what are your thoughts on this one? 6.5 is what I'm seeing here. What are you thinking?
Well, I was interested at one point. It opened 4.5, and now it's been bet up to 6.5. That may price me out of this one. But, the Hawkeyes 10-3 on the season, but they've yet to win a true road game. They played only one road team eventually this year. They played Michigan, and they lose that game 85-83, but they did cover the spread. I believe they're a 9.5-point underdog in that game. This is a team that ranks 9th in the country in true tempo. They want to run, but not many road underdogs are going to dictate the tempo in this building. That's a good defensive team like Wisconsin. Wisconsin is running a little bit more this year than they have in the past, so they don't have that problem if it does get into a track meet. Wisconsin's 10-3, but have won back-to-back non-conference games after losing 3 straight to Michigan, Marquette, and Illinois. 3 really tough opponents. They are 5-2 ATS on the season as single-digit spread games. So Wisconsin's been a team that maybe doesn't blow out the opposition, but when they play teams in their strength range, they've done very well. Like I said, 5-2. As I mentioned coming in, we did have a lean on the Badgers at the open at 4.5, but now up at 6.5. I guess I'm leaning Iowa slightly, but there's no way I want to back Wisconsin laying and have to have them win by 7. I think they're the better team, and Iowa hasn't proved anything on the road yet, but it's still a big rivalry game. And, in this price range, it's especially in the Big Ten where they're so physical, they don't have huge home advantages many times. So it's priced me out. It was Wisconsin, now it's nothing, so I'm just going to pass.
Feels like a huge number here, does it not, Trig? Is it justified? Is it warranted? Is there any value looking the other way here?
Yeah, I definitely think there's number value on Iowa now. 6.5. I made this 3. So at 6.5, like not numbers wise, it would have to be Iowa or nothing. But I don't like Iowa enough to bet that. So I'll look at the total. One of the reasons that I won't take the 6.5 with Iowa is I just don't trust them to get stops. They're going to play fast. McCaffrey has been playing this way for years, even when he was our coach at Siena College back in the day. And, he wants to push the tempo. They're going to. So the one thing I like here for Iowa is I think their offense is better than Wisconsin's defense, or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do with that. Like, I think they're going to be able to execute offensively and score. I just am a little bit concerned with how many stops they're going to get. And then, of course, you put them on the road where they tend to get less stops, and that becomes a concern. Another reason I like another reason I think this ends up getting there is it's a big number for the total, which every Iowa game basically is. But another reason I think this ends up getting there is Wisconsin never misses their foul shots. They're shooting 85% as a team from the line. It's number 1 in the country, and they're right in that range of extension, right? Like if this opened 4 and now it's 6, the odds makers are kind of telling you they think this is a couple of possession type game, even if it's a couple possessions either way, and then you get it in that range. I think you see some foul shots, and if you see some foul shots, any type of extension is going to probably push this one over. So not a play for me, but I think there's enough here to warrant liking the over.
Liking the over in this one. Well, they'll certainly take their shots there. The Iowa guys will. And the Badgers, this is a pretty rough stretch, January into February. I count 9 straight games against top 50 or 60 Ken Palm opponents here. So we're going to learn a little something about this Badgers team here and whether or not we can take them seriously come the month of March. But that's one big game set here for tonight. Another one, well, another Big Ten battle here. Michigan State taking on Ohio State. And Michigan State, I can't remember, Brian, maybe you can. Last time we're watching Izzo teams take money in this spot here. But plus 2.5, I'm seeing plus 2. Looks like Ohio State. Is there any value, though, on Michigan State as a dog in this spot, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Michigan State 11-2 as they enter play. They won 6 straight games. Their only losses this season coming to Kansas and Memphis. One thing I like about Michigan State is their defense. They rank 13th in the country defensively, which is always something I take a look at when you get a road underdog. Good defensive teams can dictate the pace a little bit, and that's obviously something we're looking for here. Michigan State is off 3 non-conference opponents. So they've got the entire, other than 2 games, they got their entire Big Ten slate coming up starting today. Ohio State 9-4 on the year, but they look to be peaking right now. That 20-point win over Kentucky was a major standout game. I had my questions about Ohio State going into that one. And Kentucky's been a team, as we've seen all year long. They look great one night and not so good the next. But that 20-point win against Kentucky was an eye-opener, at least for me. They do have some injury concerns. Michi Johnson and Micah Parrish are questionable. I would expect both of them to play, but until they are announced that they will be playing, I'm not going to get involved because they're key members to this rotation. Ohio State's been very good as a favorite. They're 7-1 as a favorite, but only once has that been by single digits. They've been a good bully this year. So I think going into this one, and that game was a favorite. They ended up losing that one straight up, by the way. A single-digit favorite to Pittsburgh. I believe they were like a 5.5-point favorite. So I trust Michigan State and what they've done with stronger opponents than Ohio State has, other than that Kentucky game. I'm leaning with Michigan State here. If I can get this thing to a little bit higher, maybe another point higher, I think I'd make it a selection.
So, Trig, I think the reason why we're even looking at plus money for Michigan State is because they haven't exactly shot the ball well this year. They certainly can't shoot from 3. And it feels like I just can't see them continuing to be a 29, 30% shooting team from 3. It's just, I think the expectation is the shooting will come around. And if it does, well, look out here. Do you buy this Michigan State team? Is there a ceiling and room to get better, in your opinion? Oh, this is where he gets muted, and we have to read lips, Brian. This is how it works. Oh, there it is. All right, we're back.
All right, I'm back. No, I was what I was saying into my microphone that wasn't putting out anything on the other end is I definitely think there's room for Michigan State to get better, and it kind of goes off of what Brian brought up. They're really, really good defensively. And it's not that they can't score, it's just that they don't hit the outside shot. So their field goal percentage inside in the paint isn't terrible. It's the outside shot that's killed them. But the fact that they're as good as they are defensively, to answer your question, makes me think that there's definitely room for improvement. Now, there's probably some room for improvement on the Ohio State side too, but I've got some concerns with the personnel, right now. Like, so I heard Michi Johnson was away from the team for personal reasons. So I heard injured, then I heard away from the team from personal reasons. I don't know what the deal is there. It's notable that they played really good against Kentucky without him. I remember a player the last couple of years we had in Syracuse named Benny Williams, who was supposed to be this awesome player for Cuse. And every time he left the team, Syracuse played better. He was kind of a cancer in the locker room. He's somewhere else now. I forget where. Somewhere in like one of the Florida schools, I think. But the point is, who knows if that's a little bit addition by subtraction. Certainly, you Michi Johnson, you want a player of his caliber available. You got Aaron Bradshaw back a couple games ago. That's pretty important. So that's a plus. I think Brian said Parrish didn't play against Indiana State. I don't know if I would want to, I would want Ohio State with him out. So I kind of lean Michigan State as well. I made Michigan State a 1-point favorite here. So the fact that you can catch a possession seems to make sense. I would watch obviously, like if some of those guys are out, then I think you're definitely on the right side taking Michigan State plus the points. And even if they're like, let's say Johnson for some reason got announced in and suddenly this went to 3 or 3.5, I'd actually think I'd still be willing to take Michigan State at the better number because I'm not sure he warrants a line move like that, especially after seeing after seeing Ohio State play against Kentucky. So based on my numbers, I guess I like Michigan State, but I'll be far away from this one. Just too much unknown here for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here, too. Going to be interesting to see the level of defense we get. And is there any negative shooting regression coming to Ohio State's way because their numbers seem to be a little bit unsustainable here? But that's another Big Ten matchup. That should be a fun one tonight. Michigan State taking on Ohio State. Guys, do not forget the opportunity to partner with these guys, whether it be Brian Leonard or Adam Trigger over at WagerTalk.com. You can hop on board, start 2025 by gifting yourself an extra 30-day all-access pass. All you have to do is get yourself a 90-day all-access package. You get a free month there. That is the way to do it. That'll lead us right into the Major League Baseball season, and you've got two guys here today that are the best of the best at Wager Talk. So hop on board there. Get yourself an extra free month of all access here at $2.99 value now over at WagerTalk.com. All right, another big game coming up here today. And boy, I don't know how much more Creighton can go through, but Creighton taking on Marquette is a fascinating one here as well, Bri. It's not a great spot for Creighton, who laid it all out on the line there against the Johnnies at home a couple of days ago. Now they got to travel to take on Marquette. Ooh, Marquette is starting to ramp up here a little bit. What are we thinking about this game? Does Creighton go on the road and get it done, or are you more in the home side? Because this number I'm seeing 7.5, 8.5, somewhere in that ballpark there.
It's actually gone up, I believe. Yeah, I'm seeing 10 now.
Wow.
I'm seeing
I think
10s.
it's 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that said, that's the side I would probably trust a little bit more, but it is getting out of our range. I didn't have to, and truthfully, I didn't have any plays today. This is going to be my best bet on the show. I just didn't like a whole lot on today's card. Most of these games are in conferences that Trig follows. So I trust his opinion on these games a little bit more than mine because he goes to them and he follows them very well. And that's a big bonus to all of us because we got a handicapper that does that. We've got a few handicappers that travel around and do that. And we can take advantage of that by his expertise. But yeah, Creighton and Marquette. Creighton enters play at 9-5, but they've yet to win a game on the road. They've had just two true road games, Alabama and Georgetown. Blue Jays have been great at home. This year they've been terrific on one of the strongest home advantages on their home court, but they're only 1-5 outside their own arena, and that includes the road games and the neutral games. So they haven't put it together. And when you take a Creighton team that shoots as many longer shots as they do, you're going to see a lot of variance in their games. So they're going to have games like I talked about earlier with Kentucky and Ohio State. You're going to find those games on Creighton's schedule at the end of the year. They're going to get blown out in games that they weren't expected to, and they're going to have some impressive wins. Both teams have played top 90 strength of schedules, so they both have played pretty good comparable schedules. They both have solid depth. Cam Jones has been terrific for Marquette. He's got an 8.86 Bayesian power rating, and that's one of the best in the nation. He's been terrific for him. Great playmaker and scorer. Golden Eagles 12-2 on the season. The losses coming on the road at Iowa State and Dayton. Iowa State's a very good team. Dayton just happened to shoot the lights out that night. And while the number looks a bit high, and it's going up, as we said, going up to 10, I think that's there for a reason. Until Creighton can play consistent ball away from home, I can't trust them here. I think this is one of those games that Marquette as the game goes on in the second half, uses some free throw shooting, uses some good defense, and gets over this number of 10. Not a huge play for me, obviously, because I didn't give it to clients. It's only a free play. But on the card today, out of any of them, that would be my best play.
It's a good game here. One that is interesting because listen, the reality is Creighton's got, their big 2 or 3 guys there, Trig, and that's about it. I'm not seeing a lot of depth on this team. Not like Marquette, who feels like they can go down that line and get a lot of production from a lot of different guys here, a lot of different ways to beat you. I mean, at some point, Creighton may feel the lack of depth. I don't know if this is the game, though. It seems like the market thinks they don't bother getting on the plane. I don't know. Do they have a shot here against Marquette? This is a big number.
Yeah, well, Creighton always has a shot because they're going to just jack up threes. They're either going to lose. They could lose this game by 50, or they could be in it because they're going to just take threes. And the reason I wouldn't bet the Creighton side is they haven't been quite as good at making jumpers as they've been the last couple seasons when they really had truly elite teams. They definitely miss Pop Isaacs, who's probably done for the year. Kalkbrenner's still a great player, very good rim defender. He can score in the paint, but really all Creighton is a lot of three, like a high volume jump shooting team. But if you look at Creighton the last 2 years relative to this year, their jump shooting numbers were better the last couple of years than they were this year. So I would be weary of them getting just run off the floor by an elite team. Marquette is an elite team. Their guards are going to do whatever they want in this game. Cam Jones will probably have 20 plus. They're going to get a lot of points from their guards. If Creighton's bombs away and they're hitting their threes, they'll be in it. If they're not, it's going to get ugly. That's how I see it. So I don't know if I want to bet that. I don't know if I want to have a bet on that and have to worry about Creighton catching fire from 3. But if they don't, it's hard to believe that Marquette doesn't win this by double digits. So no play for me. That's kind of my thoughts.
Going to be interesting too, Trig, because I'm wondering, has that total gone up, Brian Leonard? Have you seen the number rise as the line increased, or has the total gone down in this one?
I see it opened at 147, and now I see it 146 is up to 147. It's down slightly.
All right. So they're thinking Marquette means a little less scoring. And to your point, Trig, if Marquette has their way in this one here, they're probably limiting anything that Creighton can do from the perimeter anyway. So it would make sense that the total might be coming down a little bit on that one. And for what it's worth, I believe 4 of the last 5 between these two teams have landed to the under in this matchup tonight. So pretty good game there. We also wanted to take a quick look ahead, guys. There is a really good game tomorrow in the SEC that involves the University of Florida traveling to take on Kentucky here. Kentucky's opened up as an early 2.5-point favorite in this one here. And I agree, Brian Leonard. I mean, I think Kentucky should be a slight favorite. It'll be interesting to see where this line goes by the time we tip off tomorrow. But no doubt, 2 of the best teams in the SEC, 2 of the best teams in the country. There are still a lot of people who believe Florida maybe just a tad overrated at this point. Are you in that camp?
I like Florida. I think they're a very good team. But, yeah, they've only played one true road game. They won at Florida State, 87-74. This is a long way to go in the season, only playing one road game. They did have a few neutral site games. They beat Wake Forest, Wichita State, Arizona State, and North Carolina. So they just have to show it. In fact, if you take a look at so far this season by the Evan Maya numbers, average opponent strength rating, Florida's 165, Kentucky's 97. So Kentucky's played the tougher schedule. Kentucky has one of the better home advantages. Evan Maya gives them a 4.75 home advantage, and most people have less than 4. So he likes their home advantage here. I've always wondered, and I used to have season tickets for UNLV out here in Cleveland State and Akron when I lived back in Ohio. The advantages of the home teams on Saturdays, because a lot of times you play day games on Saturdays. the kids, either they're hungover or they're not showing up for the day games, or they're there for the night games. I've always thought, and if there's anybody out there that has the stats on this that could put it into our notes, how home teams do on Saturdays compared to the rest of the week, that would be a help. But Florida hasn't played that tough a schedule yet, but they are 13-0. Give them credit for what they've done. Both teams like to run. True tempo, Florida 45, Kentucky 24. Florida's number 7 defensive rank, Kentucky number 10 offensive rank. I have this game being very close in this one. I'm not going to be involved in it, but I want to see how Florida plays on a really tough home court here against Kentucky. And if Florida could get out of this with a win, maybe they're real.
Trig, you and I talked about Florida earlier in the year, and we weren't all that impressed because they really hadn't played anybody at this point. They certainly have some shooting. There was a lot of off-court issues with their coach goal and everything else about what was going on, but they have banded together. I mean, the numbers are there. Are you a believer in them? It's a tough place to go on the road and win a game.
Oh yeah. Now, if you talk to me at any point in this season, I've been pretty pro Florida all the way. So I think we did the show prior to the North Carolina game. I said they would win that game easily. They didn't win easily, but they still won and they still covered. Same thing with Arizona State. Thought they would run them off the floor. It's not Florida's fault that like certain teams, like I don't think when they put this schedule together, they didn't think they were playing a good schedule, right? Like Wake Forest just didn't pan out. Virginia lost their coach. Florida State is down from what they've been in years past. South Florida, this team they opened the season with was great last year. Their coach passes away before the season and they lose a lot of players. So it's like you can only, it is what it is. Like some of these teams just didn't pan out, but they're still dominating that. I mean, some of the results, like just dominated Wichita State, destroyed Virginia, Arizona State, no problem. North Florida is a decent small to mid-major team. Like that's a team that went out and I want to say they knocked off South Carolina, and there was another good team they beat to start the year, and they beat them by 40. Like so to save Florida is to use their record as a way to like almost like make a case against them. I disagree with that. Now I do agree with what Brian said. Certain atmospheres, like I don't think you're going to have a problem getting Rupp Arena up for an 11 a.m. game. I've been to Syracuse games at noon where the whole student section is empty because it's kind of a pain in the ass to get down to the dome. And he's right. They're like hungover or still in bed. But Lexington's different. I think they're going to be full force for this game. So they deserve their marks for home court. But I think Florida's the better of these two teams. Now, do I want to play into the potential like home court barrage spot from Kentucky? I don't know. I'm not super scared of it. Like I still think Florida is superior to Kentucky right now. I mean, we just talked about Ohio State. Kentucky really shouldn't be getting blasted by Ohio State. Like that's not a great Ohio State team. They struggled with Colgate a couple weeks ago. That's a terrible Colgate team this year. Yeah. So, they've got that nice comeback win over Gonzaga. The win over Duke. Like there's some really like bright spots for Kentucky. But from a consistency standpoint, I think Florida's been the far better team this year in all facets. So it would be Florida or nothing for me here. And I actually make them a favorite. So I'm kind of surprised to see them getting a couple. One I guess I'll have to think about for tomorrow.
It's going to be a fascinating game, no doubt. With the Gators, we'll learn a little something here about the Mark Pope Kentucky Wildcats at home. I think that's pretty much the game of the day, and we got some great ones coming up tomorrow. And Brian, I know you mentioned no best bets in college hoops here tonight. You talked about that Marquette Creighton game. What else do you have going on, though, here at WagerTalk.com for the folks?
Yeah, I've got two plays up in hockey right now. 10-1 run in the NHL. Number 1 for the last week. Number 1 for the last 3. Number 3 for the last 30. Number 1 lifetime in NHL net profit. I was talking to Andrew. I do the hockey show with Andrew, and Andrew is on one of those runs. And I just talked to him last week, and I said, I've gone a whole season without getting on one of these runs. And Well, as soon as I said it, it happened. So if you're looking to
Yep.
play some hockey, get it right now. Like I said, 10-1 run. We've been winning in everything lately, but I'm limiting my plays in the other sports because we're on such a good hockey run right now. So yeah, everything's coming up. And you mentioned that by 3 months to get the next month free. That next month is April. And Trig and I both do very well in April. We all know about Tokyo Brand has been great in baseball. Marco's done well over the years. Got a lot of good baseball handicappers. You can get that first month for free if you join us for the next 3 months. It's a great deal, and I would recommend that. My best bet, as I mentioned, was the Marquette, and I'll save you some time, and we'll go back to you and see what else Trig's got here.
Well, Trig, there's 11 games here tonight. 9 of them are in his backyard, and he's got plays on 8 of them. I'm only kidding. Yes, Siena is playing. The chat room knows it. We know it here, Trig. But as far as a best bet goes here for the show, was there a game that you were leaning towards one way or the other?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll answer questions on any of the small schools if anyone has them. For a best bet, I'll highlight what a lot of people would consider the other sort of like big game, just because it's in the 9 p.m. ESPN2 slot. That's the Atlantic 10 battle between St. Joe's and St. Louis, and this is another one, kind of like it's a similar handicap to the Kentucky, Florida, and the other game we talked about earlier, Michigan State, Ohio State, where I kind of have the 2.5 point dog favored, and I have to decide whether I have St. Joe's here -2. I make them a slight favorite, not a slight underdog, and I got to figure out if I want to mess, with the home team and only getting a bucket, because that's essentially, it's the same thing in all of those games, right? Like are you willing to just take the road team? No, you're getting a bucket, but you're only getting a bucket. That being said, I think St. Joe's is the better of these two teams. I know St. Louis still gets priced based on their preseason rating. So St. Louis, I follow the A10 quite closely, and St. Louis was kind of the odds-on favorite coming into the year. Josh Schertz comes over from Indiana State, brings Robbie Avila with him. And the expectation was that he was just going to recreate what he did at Indiana State at St. Louis and just destroy this league. And that really hasn't been the case yet. For a couple of different reasons, but I think it's worth pointing them out because I think it makes St. Joseph's a compelling option tonight. So Avila was hurt for a little bit. That didn't help them. But the 5-out attack that Schertz is so good at and was so efficient at Indiana State has been less efficient with St. Louis. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. One, I think they've played tougher teams for the most part so far. Two, it's just, nothing ever works the same one year to the next, one place to the next. It just, for whatever reason, their offense is not as tight as it was last year when Schertz was at Indiana State. They turned the ball over. It's just not as crisp. And the other thing that really makes me think St. Louis might be in trouble here, they're very soft defensively. Outside the top 200 in most metrics defensively, and you just can't do that against this St. Joe's team with these guards, with the Eric Reynolds of the world, that if you're going to play off him, he's going to go for 30, like pretty much on a given every night. Like, he's that good. And then Xavier Brown comes back for St. Joe's in the UMass game. He had missed a couple games, so that's huge to get him back. So they've got 3 guards that can score, and Rasheer Fleming's been huge for them, because that was my concern going into the season with St. Joe's, another team that I thought was in the mix in this league. My concern was, do they have anything inside? Is it all guard play, or is it just going to be all the guards and nothing on inside, and the defense being an issue? And Fleming has completely kind of held that down, the ability to score inside and then, defend the paint. He's kind of answered that question. This team, the St. Joe's team, is actually, but the numbers love them on defense. I think if you watch them, you don't get that, but like the metrics suggest that they're a very good defensive team. And I went back and looked, and they've actually improved defensively the last 2 years. So it took a big step forward last year from the year before in terms of their defense. I was worried that when they lost Essendoko to Providence, that might not be the case this year. They've arguably been better. So I think you have a good, scrappy team that really will defend. and has guards that can score. And that does not sound like something that's going to bode well for St. Louis. So I like St. Joe's here. It's 2 right now. I didn't play this. I want to. It's on my very short list for Friday. But we'll use that as a best bet for a show. I won't be surprised if St. Joseph's, man, it's tough breaking down games when both teams are Saint. I won't be surprised if St. Joe's goes on the road and gets a win here.
Yes, I like the name. I'll go with St. Joe's. Also, Avia has been dealing with a lot of injuries this year, too. Missed a whole bunch of games early. So, and we came to learn rather quickly, they didn't have a whole heck of a lot outside of him. So it's kind of a work in progress with the Billikens. But you're right, Trig. Everyone thought they were just going to run rampant here, but it's just not. That is not the case here this season. But I'm with you here on St. Joe's. I like them in this spot. I also like, and Trig and I talked about this. I like St. Peter's tonight against Quinnipiac at a short price. Quinnipiac, and Trig will nod his head here, I'm sure. What's the word I'm looking? Oh, suck, Trig. That's the word I'm looking for. Quinnipiac is a 26% three-point shooting team. They're not good, and St. Peter's likes making life miserable. I believe they lead the MAC in the fewest points allowed. Defensively, we know they're going to bring the pressure. Couple of the fact that you can't shoot threes, Quinnipiac, it just feels like this is a short number, one in which I'd be willing to lay here to back St. Peter's to get it done against the Quinnipiac team that's not any good. Trig, what are you going to do here before we get out of here with your Siena boys tonight? Are you backing them? Are you not? Everyone wants to know in the chat here.
So I am not going to back them. I want to go against them here, but I think the books are a little bit sharp to Manhattan being a lot better than anyone anticipated they would be this year. If you were following along like with MAC preseason previews and stuff and power ratings, about all the ratings had Manhattan at the bottom of this league. And I suppose rightfully so with like where they were last year and then what they lost from last year's team. But they've got a very solid starting 5. Now, they don't have anything outside that. Like they've got 6 guys that are really good, 7 through whatever on this team, not good. Like they would be in trouble if any of these guys were hurt, but they're not. They've all basically played every game. Will Sidnor is not going to be in the MAC next year. So that would be Manhattan's leading scorer and best player. He's a freshman. Dude's like 6'8". He's an athlete. Joe, I've seen enough games in person over the last few years to know what a 6'8" like MAC player is supposed to look like, and a 6'8" dude that plays in like the A10 or the Big East. Sidnor should be in the A10 or the Big East. Like he's that good. Someone missed on him because he's only a freshman. He's from the Bronx. My guess is he didn't have the exposure that he should have had. He is nasty. And I don't know that Siena's got a player as good as him on their, on their team. I like the way Siena's played recently. Like they played up against Cornell the other day. They win as a 12.5 point underdog. Like that's a nice upset. But now they have to turn around and lay points. Manhattan starting 5 is really good. And the problem for Siena here is they either go back to playing super slow like they did against Niagara, Canisius, and St. Bonaventure and get into half court, which won't really expose Manhattan because, as I said, they want to play with like 6 guys. They don't want to go deep into a rotation. But Manhattan's metrics are better when they play fast. So if Siena sort of goes back to the faster pace that they've played the last couple games, then you're kind of letting Manhattan get up and down the floor, specifically Sidnor just beating you down the floor, getting to the rim, getting to the foul line. It's a kind of a tricky matchup for Siena. So I would have loved to get like 6 here because that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like Manhattan plus 5.5 or 6, and I would have been all over this for a best bet. 3.5 feels to me like the odds makers know this. Like they're tuned in and they know how good Manhattan is. And for that reason, I've got to pass. But Manhattan or nothing for me. I think this could be a really good game.
Brian, what does the cat think? Is the cat in agreement with Trig for the no?
He's finally shut up, so I'm not going to bother him.
I love it. Well, there you got it here, guys. It should be a great slate of games coming up all weekend long here in college hoops. And one other game we didn't mention as an honorable mention, we'll throw it out there quick, is Xavier on the road against Georgetown. Georgetown 9-1 straight up this year at home, but the strength of schedule between these two teams, Brian Leonard, is night and day. And then a pick'em price. I mean, you got it. And I believe what Georgetown's leading guy is, Jaden Epps, I believe. He's the leading scorer. He is questionable here, but it's still -1 there. I mean, they're actually a favorite at home here. How much does strength of schedule play into the point as we get ready for, conference play now here? I mean, does it matter to you? Does it not? Or are we still going to find out here with a team like Georgetown?
Yeah, you have to take a look at opponent strength ranking. Xavier 115, Georgetown 193. This far into the season, Georgetown's looked great. I've made money on Georgetown this year. They've been good to me. But you're right. They haven't played the schedule that Xavier has. And until you get more of a competing power rating against opponents, it's really hard to take into account everything. Defensive ranks are both very good defensively, 55 for Xavier, 61 for Georgetown. But the big difference is Xavier could score. They're 24th in the nation in offensive rank, while Georgetown's 100. Georgetown's looked very good. I cannot say a bad thing about Georgetown, but it's a situation for me where I need to see a little bit more out of them. For Xavier, Zach Fremantle, who played 11 games, is out for the season now, and he was pretty good. He had a 5.92, which was leading the team in the Bayesian power rating. So they're going to be without him, and that's going to be a big differential. And Trey Green is played 9 games for him. He's questionable. He's more of a depth situation. So for me, I like this Georgetown team, but I'm not willing to lay the price here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing Jaden Epps a game-time decision here, Trig. Listen, we talked about this Georgetown team early on in the season. We thought it's a process, right, with Cooley. We thought it's going to take him a little while to get it going. But 9-1 straight up at home this season. Granted, it wasn't the toughest of schedules, but it feels like there's levels to this. It just feels like Xavier's got more ways to beat you, and they're not going to be intimidated by this Georgetown team. It seems like a pick'em price, but should it really be a pick'em here? Are you high on this Georgetown team?
I'm not high on them. I guess I like them when they're undervalued, because it's like, it's easy to undervalue them in the market based on what they've been the past couple of years. That being said, like I don't know I want Xavier here either. This is like, I probably have as little of an opinion on this one as any of the games tonight. So I won't ramble any further. If there's another one someone asked about, happy to talk about it. But this was a pretty easy pass for me.
Well, I keep getting asked about Marist, so I'm throwing that one to you, and then we'll get out of here. So are you backing Marist here tonight in this one?
I'm not. I like Iona in this matchup. I think you have a perfect example of a team that is due some negative regression against a team that's due a ton of positive regression, and that would be Marist due the negative regression, the positive regression on Iona, who's been a little banged up, to start the year. They just got Christian Winborn back, so that's going to help them. I talked about this a little bit on one of the shows last week, when Marist was playing Binghamton, that I thought they were getting overvalued, and they were actually trailing at halftime, turned around and just destroyed Binghamton in the second half. I think they're going to struggle with Iona's athleticism here, their ability to, just to play. Like Tobin Anderson wants to play the entire length of the court. He presses as much as any coach in the country, and now they finally are starting to get the personnel to do that. So I think Iona, reluctantly, earlier in the show, I said, all these MAC teams are. I think I said that off air to you when you were asking me about St. Peter's. I was like, Quinnipiac's just not very good. None of these MAC teams are very good. I think the one that probably emerges is Iona. They just have the most. They have the most talent. Tobin Anderson, we know he's a good coach. He found a way to beat Purdue with a team called Fairleigh Dickinson. So we know that guy can coach. And I think he's going to get it figured out with this team, and he probably wins the MAC. So Iona, I'm high on going forward. Marist, I think, takes a step back at some point. So that's what I'll look at tonight. I like the Gales.
Brian, do you have any, what the hell's going on with Nevada? I know Big Daddy was talking Nevada, New Mexico here. Nevada's lost 3 straight games, Colorado State, Wyoming, Utah State, all within a couple of buckets. And yet New Mexico has seemed to have figured it out here with wins over Fresno, Colorado State, VCU, and whatever that Western New Mexico team is. I think it's Sisters of the Poor. So what's going on here with Nevada? Not the same kind of team that they had just a year ago for Alfred, huh?
Yeah, they've been good teams, not great teams, but they have performed pretty well in the past. I don't go against New Mexico at home very often.
No.
I've got to have a really good reason to do so, and Nevada just hasn't shown me enough. They've got some good players on that team, but until I see something better from them, I mean, I have New Mexico rated a little bit better, and then the home field, I'll eventually get around to the home court.
Yes,
is one of the strongest ones out there. Look at true tempo. New Mexico's second in the country compared to Nevada's 343. You can't get much different than that. So Nevada's a team that wants to go on the road and slow it down. New Mexico at home in front of the home crowd wants to get out and run. Nevada's got to play some really good defense to keep this one close. And, they're ranked 95th on the season, which isn't bad, but New Mexico's better than that. I like the New Mexico side in this game, but yeah, it is a little bit more than what a lot of people would want to play based on the talent between these two teams.
6 I'm seeing now, but that's 3 straight losses as a favorite. 8.5 against Colorado State. They lost by 2. They were a 5.5 point favorite at Wyoming, and they lost by 5. And then they were a favorite at Utah State too, 3.5. And they lost by 5. So I'm starting to see an unnerving trend with Nevada there, Trig. The only thing is now they're getting 6. But he's right, though, right? That's an impossible place to win a game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like, I always think that these some of these Mountain West the home court edge applied by the odds makers to these Mountain West venues is a little bit out of control. It makes betting Mountain West basketball kind of difficult because every time, especially when these teams are good, it's a little bit easier when the Mountain West isn't as good, but pretty much the last couple of years, there's been some good teams out in the Mountain West, and it's instantly the number 6.5 at home. And it makes it tough because, like Brian said, do you really want to go against New Mexico on their home court? Probably not, but there's no question that there's clear line value for Nevada. So it makes these a really tough games to bet. I didn't think this Nevada team was half bad. They're about to be 0-4 in the Mountain West if they lose this game. So it's I was tempted to take the points there because it's just such a do or die spot for Nevada. But I don't know. There's been some real concerns for me watching them, get run out at, or I'm sorry, they've really lost 3 close games. So the game I was thinking of was the Wyoming game. But that was a close one. And but the problem is the other problem. Colorado State's down this year. They lost to them at home. Concerning, right? Wyoming's not great. That's a tough place to play, so I'm not surprised they lost that one on the road. I was really shocked. I didn't play it because I didn't want to lay 3.5, but the home loss on New Year's Eve to Utah State really surprised me. I thought that was a home run spot for Nevada to win. It's tough. I was really tempted to take the 6 with the Wolfpack here, but it goes back to the same thing. Even though I think the number it's correct based on the numbers to play Nevada plus 6, you still could run into that buzzsaw that is home court in Albuquerque. So that's the reason I'm not going to play it.
Yeah, it's a good way to end the night, though, and a pretty decent slate of games here on a Friday night. Brian Leonard told you already he's got 2 best bets in the NHL, guys. He refuses to lose in the NHL right now. You can go pick those up here on a nice slate on the ice tonight. Trig, locked, loaded, ready to go into what is going to be a huge weekend here in college. And now, of course, we await the college football playoffs and those matchups. So we still got a lot to go here in the college landscape over the next couple of weeks. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We certainly appreciate you guys hanging with us. And of course, more great free content just a couple of clicks away here on your screen. If it's a big game you're looking for a breakdown and a pick on, well, we've got it. So just go ahead, click those videos on your screen now and come back and join us again next week for more college basketball tip-off show. We'll see you then. Have a good weekend.